What does a bubble, a swan, and a cave have in common? Well, nothing really, but I did manage to image all of them with this telescope rig from a cliff-top perch overlooking the Pacific Ocean. There have been very few clear night skies during the month of October this year, so I jumped at the chance on Friday the 17th when the clouds suddenly were nowhere to be found. My plan was to travel by car to Jogashima Island. And Jogashima is the closest Bortle Class 4 dark sky area nearest to my home in Yokohama. You can see its location here on the Miura Peninsula south of Tokyo and Yokohama on the Sagami Bay. If we zoom into the Miura Peninsula, to the upper right is the city of Yokosuka on the eastern shore, which is home to America's 7th Fleet and site of the largest U.S. naval base in Asia. And at the most southern tip of the peninsula is the nearby island of Jogashima, accessible by a bridge. On this particular trip, I was accompanied for the first time by an American friend of mine. Meet Glenn. We arrived early to Jogashima Island after a quick dinner at the nearby fish market. For astrophotography, with heavy telescope rigs, the park on the east side of the island is the best location for imaging the night skies. This is a Google Earth 3D view of the park, and noted here is the overlook that I used for YouTube episode number 42, which was probably the most epic night of imaging in my astrophotography career. You really should check it out. But this night, I wanted to try a different location, so we selected this perch, which seemed somewhat secluded and protected from occasional brisk ocean winds. Here is a view from the east side of the island, where you can see the Awazaki Lighthouse. Its illumination is direction limited, which actually posed no problem for our imaging. This is the imaging rig I brought for this evening. It included the SV503 80ED, my largest refractor, which is an ED doublet lens design and sold by Zerboni. I also used the ASI 533 MC Pro color camera, AM5 mount, ASI Air Pro computer, the ASCAR 32mm f4 guide scope, and the ASI 678 MC camera for guiding. The clifftop perch we selected had plenty of open space, with wide views to the south and west, where we could see the southern tip of Chiba, Oshima Island about 70 kilometers away, and Odawara City and Izu to the west. By sunset, we were ready. I mainly wanted to photograph the Comet Swan and the Bubble Nebula on this imaging night. But later that evening, I decided to add another nebula, and I'm glad that I did. Like most comets, Comet Swan was found close to the horizon from our northern latitude. It was located toward the southwest and in the vicinity of the Milky Way on this date and time. Imaging the comet was the main reason I picked this location, to take advantage of the dark southern skies over the ocean waters. My first subframe was captured at 1851 using a UV IR cut filter and a 182nd exposure. During the imaging time, the comet dropped from 26 to 16 degrees altitude over the ocean. Luckily, my telescope rig was able to point to it, just barely above the safety fence shown here. That bright light out there in the water turned out to be a large cruise ship heading out to sea, probably from the port of Yokohama. Here is what a single 182nd subframe looked like when displayed by the ASI Fitzviewer software from ZWO. I routinely use this software to rapidly scan the quality of all subframes and discard any unwanted images with artifacts prior to stacking. You can barely see the green color of the comet on this image. After stacking 20 subframes in Sequitur using the Comet stacking feature, and conservatively developing the image file in GIMP, this is the resulting picture. On this night, Comet Swan was not visible to the naked eye, being about magnitude 9.2. It was in the constellation of Serpens and about 40 million kilometers away from the Earth, heading back out into deep space, traveling over 40 kilometers per second. Not much of the comet tail was visible at this current distance from the Sun. Here is the same stacked image, but after I aggressively stretched the mid-tone colors and highlights a bit more. I also cropped and zoomed in as well. I think it came out quite nice. During this night, as usual, I brought along my Canon EOS R8 camera to take photographs and movies to create this video, but I also wanted to image the Milky Way as well. So I used my 35mm RF lens and took a series of 360 JPEG images at ISO 6400. I strung all these images together in QuickTime to create a short time-lapse video which represents around 1 hour of sky rotation time. On this particular night, it was just for fun, not a serious effort. Here is a single unedited Milky Way snapshot taken with my Canon camera. Surprisingly, I noticed that the seeing conditions were actually not very good. There was no reported or noticeable cloud cover. However, the Milky Way looked much less visible than on other nights when I visited here in the past. But no matter, we were excited to be there nevertheless. This is the same single frame image just shown previously, but here I removed the background light gradients by using Graxpert and then processed the image in GIMP and cleaned it up in Topaz Denoise. It looked halfway decent after all that. And this image results from a set of 21 images stacked in serial, and then the same processing procedure described earlier. Here, the image quality and signal to noise was significantly improved. In this image, if you have an eagle eye, you might be able to find Comet Swan. Okay, let me help. Here it is. For your reference, this image of the Swan Nebula outlined in green covers about 1.1 degrees of night sky. Moments ago, I used the term eagle eye. That was on purpose, because on this night, the comet was moving toward the Eagle Nebula from our earthbound perspective. But on the following night, October 18th, it was going to be close enough to image both the comet and the nebula in the same field of view. Unfortunately, here in eastern Japan, the following night was much too cloudy to do any imaging. But for others, like Chuck at Chuck's Astrophotography YouTube channel, he was able to capture a fantastic image of the close pass with his Celestron Rasa telescope. And due to the weather, I did not get that chance. After imaging the comet, and just after the park lights dimmed at 8 p.m., I turned my telescope to SH2-162, the Bubble Nebula. I imaged the target until about 10:30 p.m., starting when it was 62 degrees altitude in the east and rising in the sky. On this target, I selected my Optolong L-Extreme filter and took 180-second exposures. The skies were fully dark at around this time, although there was a lot of aerial traffic over the bay for planes landing at Tokyo Haneda Airport. This did not bother me because, as you can see with my telescope in this photograph, the Bubble Nebula was actually high in the sky and to the north, not over the bay. Imaging to the north at this location is less ideal, but these Bortle Class 4 skies at Jogashima still offered me views much better than my Bortle 7 to 8 skies back home in Yokohama. This is an unedited single-frame image captured at 8:40 p.m., displayed again using the FitzViewer software application. Here the nebula is quite close to reaching its meridian altitude of 64 degrees. In this image, you can also see the Scorpion star cluster, M52, in the upper right-hand corner. The telescope rig meridian flip occurred flawlessly as usual with the AM5 mount. I captured more than 40 subframes of this nebula for a total of 2 hours of integration time. The bubble nebula is about magnitude 10 in the constellation of Cassiopeia. It is located about 7,000 light-years away from Earth. Here, I processed the final image using my usual method employing Cizdziel, Graxpert, GIMP, Topaz Denoise, and iPhoto. And this is that image. Primarily an emission nebula, SH2-162 is illuminated and excited by a supermassive O-type blue star known as SAO 20575. It is 40 to 60 times more massive than our Sun and is poised to go supernova sometime in the near future, as evidenced by the expulsion of surface gases and stellar winds like that which gave rise to the bubble structure surrounding it. These supermassive stars are short-lived, burn bright, and due to their exceptional mass, explode in a blaze of glory, a Type II supernova, yielding either a neutron star remnant or a black hole. Here is a zoomed-in and cropped photo of the image I captured on this night at Jogashima. The imaging routine on this night was progressing rather smoothly to this point, so it was not necessary to monitor my rig continuously. A few meters away, on the other side of the platform, my friend Glenn was doing a lot of visual astronomy, hunting around the skies for interesting objects. Glenn brought his Takahashi FS60 refractor telescope for viewing. It is a beautiful scope. He supported it on a manual Skywatcher AZ Pronto mount and attached his smartphone to use the AstroHopper sky navigation application. With this configuration, Glenn was able to quickly find many objects in the night sky, including the Swan comet that I had imaged earlier. The faint greenish glow of the comet was visible in the eyepiece and quite satisfying to see. After some interesting visual astronomy with the Takahashi scope and a few hours of imaging the bubble nebula, I got to thinking. Thinking helped along by this new beer from Sapporo Breweries called Extra Think. You know, I just had to buy it and try it, if only for that ridiculous product name. Kekko oishikatta demo aji ga futsu desu. So at this point, I was considering whether to continue capturing more data on the bubble or switch to a new target. Obviously, I chose the latter, which was SH2-155, the Cave Nebula. And I'm glad that I did. I spent almost 3 hours imaging this target and starting it after it crossed the meridian. Here is a single subframe image taken at 2303 when the target was at 56 degrees high in the sky to the northwest. This cave is nearby to the bubble nebula in the sky and significantly brighter. It is also located closer to us at about 3,000 light-years distance. In total, I captured 2 hours of good data to create this image, as it moved from 58 degrees west down to about 40 degrees in altitude when I finished imaging at 1:27 p.m. Here is a cropped and zoomed close-up of the SH2-155 star-forming region, displaying some interesting dense hydrogen emission nebula structures and dark nebula regions. I did not expect such fantastic detail with just 2 hours of integration time on this target. I'm still quite surprised by it. It was fun bringing my 80ED scope to Jogashima for the first time. This was only enabled because I can now transport it with my new car, carrying more sizable equipment for astrophotography. That evening, the night got a bit cool, but humidity was low and there were no clouds all night long. Here I am, acting silly at the stairs descending from the park's grassy level above us, with the lights of civilization behind me to the north. And I always love photographing the Orion constellation as it is rising in the east. And this time, I focused on the true beauty in this photo composition, the night sky, instead of my silhouette. And here, let me share a final photo of Glenn and myself. We decided to call it the night around 2 o'clock a.m. after 8 hours of imaging and viewing under the night skies. It then took another 70 or 80 minutes to drive back to Yokohama. I was home and asleep by 4:30 a.m. just before sunup. Glenn, unfortunately, had much further to travel. I was surprised to see Comet Swan in the wide-field Milky Way photo, and I was pleased with the 3 images I captured at Jogashima. Although it's possible to photograph the bubble and cave nebula again sometime in the future, Comet Swan is something we will never see again. I think it's fascinating to image dynamic and transient objects like comets in our night sky, especially against the backdrop of stars and deep sky objects that change very little even after thousands and thousands of years of history and time. Thanks for joining me on this Japan travel imaging adventure. I'm JPAstroGuy. My name is Paul Cizdziel, and you have been watching Astrophotography Japan.